this because I've got to get this out there, folks. You really need to understand this, and I'm going to record this episode so that you understand what's going on. First thing I want to do is share with you the auspices, the guiding principles behind the Special Access Program. Wikipedia says that special access programs in the U.S. federal government are security protocols that provide highly classified information with safeguards. This is an extra level of safeguard, folks. You cannot accidentally take SAP information. You cannot leave the area that you are enclosed in with any devices, with any materials. You cannot access this without full acknowledgement that you understand that this is SAP information, because this is the type of information that gets people killed the moment it gets released out in the public. So what we're facing here is that we, as former veterans, those of us who had clearances, understand this. We understand that if we had done what Hillary Clinton had done, we would have been in jail already. But especially when you raise it to the level of SAP, Q has made it very clear that in order to traffic any SAP, you really need to be high up in the government. I mean, i.e. cabinet level. There's just no way you can get SAP. It's marked. It is clearly marked that you cannot copy and paste SAP. You cannot move SAP. It is one of those things that has what they call special access required SAR markings. So you can't even look at it unless you're the appropriate person. Well, let's get down to who the appropriate people are. Two types of SAP exist, acknowledged and unacknowledged. The existence of an acknowledged SAP may be publicly disclosed, but the details of the program remain classified. An unacknowledged SAP, or black program, basically, is made known only to authorized persons, including members of the appropriate committees of the United States Congress. Waived SAPs are a subset of unacknowledged SAPs in the Department of Defense. These SAPs are exempt for statutory authority of Secretary of Defense from most reporting requirements and within the legislative branch. The only persons who are required to be informed of said SAPs are the chairpersons and ranking committee members of Senate Appropriations Committee, Senate Armed Services Committee, House Appropriations Committee, and House Armed Services Committee. So there are SAPs out there that will only be revealed to the heads and the ranking members, the chairpersons and the ranking members of these committees. Well, John McCain was the chairperson of the Senate Armed Services Committee. So he had access to SAP information. Well, what SAP information you're asking? Well, let's start to delve into this and get an understanding of what we're talking about. So bear with me a second. I'm going to find a document here. I see that I've got a colleague who's come in, and I'd love any comments that he has. I'm going to share this article with you folks real quick. I've got to find a PDF that I have. Bear with me. But I'm going to share this other article with you and get some comments on it, because I think that this is entirely pertinent to the circumstances in which we find ourselves. Okay? Come on. Come on. I've got to have the computing power. Folks, you know, if you got a Weasley little laptop, you know what comes along with that. It's the fact that things go slower, things bog down, things are frankly timid. Well, I'm pulling this article up. Let's understand what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with groups of people who have specific access to intelligence that they know, because it's required that they be clearly marked that they're special access registry programs. They know they cannot beg off that they didn't know it was SAP. And in order to have SAP on your server at home, you have to have committed a crime, because you just can't leave with it. You can, to take it out of the facility that it's located in, to even take it from the desk that you're located at, is espionage. That's espionage, folks. Even removing the material is espionage. So it's not gross negligence, folks. This is not gross negligence. This is a case of espionage or premeditated treason. And that's everybody knows that. Everybody knows it, and yet they won't discuss it, which is very frightening. They won't have that conversation that's the truth. Well, look, Germany asserts independence after the U.S. warns on Huawei. Look, they warned on March 12th. March 12th, 3 days ago, the U.S. has warned these other countries about Huawei. Why have they warned about Huawei? Well, we know something that these countries all know, and they're not, again, they don't want to discuss it. Well, Germany will define its own security standards for a new 5G mobile network. 5G, folks. Why is it 5G? Why are we talking about 5G? Chancellor Angela Merkel said on Tuesday, after Washington said it would scale back data sharing with Berlin in China's Huawei was allowed to participate. So President Trump, our POTUS, has put the world on notice, and put Germany specifically in notice, that if they agree with Huawei or coordinate with Huawei, we will not be involved with their security measures, because we already know what Huawei is up to. Okay, now let's investigate. What could they possibly be up to that we would not allow them to be involved in 5G rollout? I mean, let's put our thinking caps on for a moment. Let's put our hats on. I know some of us are sans hat, but we need to put our thinking caps on, because this is a time for us to be thinking. Okay, we've got SAP information. We don't know what that SAP information is, but we do know that there's very, very strict standards on handling it, and that it only is divulged to the ranking members of 4 subcommittees, and to the committee heads of those 4 subcommittees for military, and additionally for high-ranking individuals in the government who have that specific right to look at SAP. Go ahead.
Well, it would also, it's strictly a need to know, and think black ops, think really high level black ops that nobody needs to know about other than those strictly closely involved.
See, my colleague has just verified what I put up there in Wikipedia, that these are black ops, folks. These are ops that people get killed over when the information gets out there, and everyone knows that. Those who have had clearances before understand what they're dealing with. They understand the information they're holding, and that if it gets released, people die. And so this is not a joke. This is not an issue of negligence. The Secretary of State is issuing authority of classified information. Secretary of State gets to classify information, gets to say information is SAP. A person who gets to define what the classification of material is cannot beg off in negligence. I didn't know. Okay, well, you're a classifying authority. You had to know. That's part of your job, because you're the one that determines whether it's SAP information from the outset, and you order people to put the markings on it. Okay, so that whole thing is a narrative, which we need to stop following it. Well, let's continue to look at Germany for a moment. Germany is supposedly getting back its ass a little bit. For what? Because Richard Grenell has faced criticism for handling of U.S.-German disagreement over trade, 2015 Iran nuclear deal, and Russian-led Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. Folks, they are playing with fire, because this Huawei thing is huge. Now, I have several questions, not primarily one of which was, how did SAP get out of the servers? That was the first one that came to my mind. How do they get it out of here? You're not allowed to, those of us who've been in that environment understand that you're not allowed to bring devices in, and if you do to have devices in, those devices are surrendered at the behest of the Marines or the guards who are guarding the location. So, look, you will be challenged if you try to take something out of here. So they obviously came up with a method to get this information out, and they were high enough level that they didn't get questioned, which means who doesn't get questioned? POTUS. I mean, he's the only one that doesn't get questioned about the information that he's taking away from the computer. Everybody else is supposed to be challenged. Even if you're a high-ranking cabinet member, you get challenged, because that's the job of somebody who's guarding that location. So let's look for a moment at another document. I'm going to pull this one up, this PDF I was talking about. Let me scroll up to that. Okay, here we go. Let me share this with you. Mind the gap, folks. Lawn and garden, 4th floor. Please step to the left. Step briskly. And make sure to pass your heels beyond the gap.
I could throw in a few
please do, brother.
snarky comments here and there if you need me.
Well, that's why I was certainly invited. So join in. Please do, brother. Please add your snarkiness.
Well, I'm just trying to just kind of catch up to where you're at here, because I kind of joined in a little bit late as you were doing here, and I was trying to find a hat, but I couldn't find one.
That's okay. I understand that the size hat you need is probably the size of the bowling bag. So
Yeah.
then you wouldn't have a place to put your bowling ball.
Nobody could confuse me for having a big head. Let's put it that way.
I do. I've got a bucket-sized cranium, so I understand, man. I feel your pain. I feel your pain.
Everything here is very compact.
Now, what are we dealing with here, folks? When you start to talk SAP, and I want your input on this, Thumper. What are we dealing with when we're talking SAP? What type of things are included in SAP?
Oh, these could be operations that. Well, let's put it this way: a lot of what the CIA would do in espionage in other countries, operations in other countries that are not acknowledged, dealing with operations that are dealing with highly classified, maybe technology.
There you go. That's the one I wanted you to come out with, because that's why I invited you, because this, to be honest, Thumper, this is what it was. This is what she had on her server. This is what they've sent out there in the clear. This is the SAP information, and that's what this is about. I've discovered what it is. And that is a frightening thought, because when you see what it is, folks, it's going to blow you away. Well, I point you towards a series. This is the second session, this document, but it was the Committee on Armed Services, United States Senate Committee, July 14th through September 13th of 2016. So 2016, you remember that period, right, folks? July 14th through September 13th, that was the whole fiasco surrounding Comey, not going to pressure Clinton, I'm not going to charge Clinton, and that was the whole dossier time frame. That was the whole Strzok and Page communicating back and forth episode. So, if you will, return your minds to that moment. We're going to have that return in time.
We're going to step into the Wayback Machine here.
So think like, put your Loretta Lynch hat on, because this is the time frame of Loretta Lynch. And I give you the Senate Armed Services Committee. And these are the members: Imhoff, Sessions, Sessions, Wicker, Ayotte, Fisher, Cotton, Rounds, Ernst, Tillis, Sullivan, Lee, Mike Lee, wonder why he's speaking out against the president, Graham, Cruz, Reed, Nelson, McCaskill, Manchin, Shaheen, Gillibrand, Blumenthal, Donnelly, Hirono, amazing.
Go figure. Yeah.
Wow. Tim Kaine, Angus S. King, and Martin Heinrich. Okay. I don't want to bloviate too much, because you know me, I have a propensity to bloviate, so I will not bloviate. I'll get right to the point here. The point is that this is a huge document, and I would love for people to review it themselves, because, you don't want Caleb talking for the 6 hours it's going to take me to read this document to you. But suffice it to say, the discussion of this panel is cryptology. Cryptology. Okay, what is cryptology? Well, encryption. I mean, you need a password, because you have encryption you have to get past, right? Because your information is scrambled. Cryptology is privacy, or the lack thereof. Cryptology is IT. Just to Thumper's so brilliant, man. You can all you do is you got to throw the hook out there, and old Thumper will go, well, that is insufficient bait for Thumper. But let me point out the fact that is bait. And so I threw the bait out there, and Thumper pointed it out. He said, that's bait. You're looking for an IT man, and that's what this is. This whole document is about where we're going with regard to IT in cryptology. Now, I do have some familiarity with this segment, folks, as I was what they call a 2673 for the United States Marine Corps, a Korean cryptologic linguist. So I do have some background in this, and I do understand the inners and outers of this issue. However, that just being said, that just gives credibility to the statement that I'm going to make, that this whole thing, this SAP that was put out in the clear, has to do with two things. Number one, it has to do with what's called quantum key distribution, that they have discovered how to use quantum cryptography. They have discovered how to use two photons and have them change polarity no matter what distance they are away from each other. And the Chinese, Huawei, God bless you, Huawei, have determined how to send those photons via laser beam from satellites to your cell phones. Is it starting to dawn on you? Are you starting to get that bucket hat? Are you starting to get that itchy feeling, that strange and itchy feeling that, gee, wherever I can get line of sight with a laser beam that has a photon coming from the satellite, and I have, let's say, a BlackBerry, that I have access to quantum cryptography, which nobody else can break?
Anybody tries to break it, it scrambles the message.
That's it. So what would I have to do to my BlackBerry if I got caught?
Well, if anybody tries to break the encryption.
No, you're missing the flavor of my question.
Okay.
Throw the bait out there. I'm gonna add a little orange to it, a little squiggly worm to it. Okay. If I were caught because I lost an election, or I knew I might be going down, what would I do with my BlackBerry, that tech that I was holding in my hand?
Probably smash it.
Oh, now you see, folks. That's why the BlackBerries were smashed, because they are dealing with absolutely new tech that is SAP tech. That's why they had to smash their BlackBerries, because it was evidence, not the materials, not the emails. They want to mislead you with the emails. And then I was thinking last night, I was sitting there last night going, you look at the Clintons, and they are just master obfuscators and misdirectors. The meaning of is, I mean, we remember that, right, folks? Well, look at Hillary Clinton, a lawyer of the same cloth. And what she did was, I've produced 32,000 pages of emails. And I was like, what is pages of emails? It's the same thing like in this document they call ISIS, the ISIL. Didn't that used to upset you when Obama used to call him ISIL? Go ahead.
I could never figure out what the whole emphasis of that was. I mean, it just, what was his, I never figured out the reasoning behind it. I think he was just trying to be a jerk.
There is a reasoning, and it's a legal reasoning, and lo and behold, Obama is another lawyer of major obfuscation and disinformation. So when you say ISIL, you're saying the Levant. Well, guess what the Levant is? The Levant is that wide swath of territory across multiple nations, including Israel. The Levant, but this was made to obfuscate the fact that Syria was involved in the title of ISIS.
Okay.
That they didn't want Syria involved, so they changed it to Levant because they didn't want this focus on Syria. Why didn't they want to focus on Syria? Because that's where the material is hidden. That's where all the operations are hidden, are in Syria, because they were working with that monster there to conduct black ops. And so, that you just obfuscate and obfuscate and obfuscate. And what I found with Hillary is that I've produced 32,000 pages of emails. Who calls them pages of emails? We don't call them pages of emails. We call them emails. But I sat there and I pondered. I said, okay, what is the ploy made to obfuscate the fact that they were just emails? Well, if you took a picture of an email, what does it become? A page.
Well, it becomes a page.
Yes. So now we're starting to see that these folks are thinking in obfuscation means, but they're also showing their slip in the process. The reality is she says, I produced 33,000 pages of emails. That could be the header line. She could take a picture of the header of the email, and that's a page. I didn't give you the content of the email, but I gave you a page of the email. There's the header. I didn't tell you who it's to and from, but I took the date and showed you that there was an email, and that's a page. So that's the game they play. They play the lawyer game. They play the game of discovery. When somebody wants discovery, you pull up to a warehouse full of paper that has nothing to do with the case, and you load up an 18-wheeler full of paper that has nothing to do with the case. And there might be something in there that they need, but they're going to have to go through an 18-wheeler load of paper to find it. And that's the kind of ploys that they use. So what did they do? What did they find? What was this information? Well, let's go and look at some of the supporting material that I've got. Now, I would recommend that you really do look into this document, folks. Because it really does. It's 89 pages of discussion on cryptology. I mean, your tongue's gonna lull, and you're gonna start drooling, and you're gonna need 12 cups of coffee. But it's worth the read, because you're gonna see that all these people that were named, Mazie Hirono, Jeff Sessions was here. Isn't that magical that Sessions knew what the SAP material was? Isn't that magical? That's
pretty interesting. I find it very, very interesting. Because it makes me think that the reason that Sessions recused himself, it kind of gives a different light on why he recused himself.
This starts to fit a whole bunch of things together. And what prompted me on this, and I'm just going to tell you straight up, is Q jobs. I've been puzzling about certain Q jobs for the past year. I'm wondering, what Q job? Why did it say what it said? Why are they pointing us this direction? Why did on that document, that PDF that I just pulled up, why did they invite Tim Cook to that meeting and he didn't show up? The CEO of Apple. He was going to be present for a discussion that could include information about SAP programs.
Interesting.
Why would Tim Cook be there? The reason Tim Cook would be there is because of encryption.
The technology, yeah.
That's the only reason he would be there, is because he would have the information on cryptographic seals and how Apple has defeated some of those issues. So I think I took a screenshot of this Q job because it's loading slow. Bear with me. I gotta get the.
So I got a question for you. So when it comes to, are all of our tech companies, is there any one of them out there that could be considered patriots?
I think that they're all owned, and I think that they're owned under the auspices of what I've been throwing out there for the last 2 months, which is corporations are higher on the ladder than states underneath Roman law, because they are part of Roman law puts the corporation just underneath the emperor, and they have greater authority than. Are you painting?
They generate a lot of income as commerce, basically.
They generate a lot of income, but let's look at my most recent guest, Adam Winkler. The reason why I had him on is because corporations, the past 200 years, have been using the courts to do what they finally achieved in 2010, to give themselves the right to fund the political process.
Right.
So they are beyond taxes, as evidenced by Amazon not paying any taxes, and many of these companies are not paying any taxes. They're beyond taxation because they're a corporation. They report to the emperor, not to the state. If you look through corporate law, you will find that the universities continue to win one after another case against the states in which they're located, because they are corporations that were formed in 1789 and 1643 and 1589 by the King of England. So therefore, they are not subject to, they are not lower on the chain of command than the states. The states lose out because the universitas in Roman law is the corporation. In fact, that's the term for corporation in Latin, is universitas. So back to this IT. I don't want to get so far abroad, but this is all tied together, folks. What you're starting to see, Sessions, having been a senior member on the Senate Armed Services Committee, would know about this cryptography. He would know all about this. Okay, so really important role that he's played. Let's look at Q drop 775. I've got that up there on the share. Do you see that, Thumper?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just throwing out a little more info. Don't even know if it has relevance. Cell phones were originally analog. The switch over to digital was very gradual. Digital signals allow for much greater distance to be covered or much less power, thus miniaturization of phones. Because of the nature of the square digital way is much more effective. Well, here's an Anon who's posing something, trying to get Q to give him some information. And this is what Q says. What 3 scientists were killed who were researching the SAT relay of mobile phone signals to end users? Okay, folks, that is a key. You got to go out there and look for the 3 people who were killed, who were working on what? They were working on that SAT relay of photons from satellites using quantum cryptography through lasers to remote devices. Why was the research deemed classified? That's why it was deemed classified, because it's SAP information. Using quantum key distribution could make or break. The country that has that in place is way out front of other
light years ahead of everyone.
Yeah, and that's a joke. What a Thumper joke! Photons, and he uses light years. He's such a brilliant guy. They're light years ahead. That's crazy stuff there. Well, folks, I stopped the share for a moment because I want us to reflect. Okay, we've isolated the fact that there were certain members, John McCain, Mazie Hirono, Sessions, Manchin, other people who were on that committee, who would have information regarding SAP, who would be in a position to then have to vote against or for the president, Mike Lee, people who have voted for or against him, because they knew about the dissemination of this information would potentially get people killed or bring this nation down. It's pivotal, folks. That SAP, now we start looking into the fact that when you start looking at this tech, what is this tech? Well, this tech is allowing us to send quantum key distribution cryptography across huge distances and potentially from satellites. And all these people knew it. Well, what they also knew, and what many of these senators and congressmen who have been covorting with the Chinese knew, is that the Chinese have perfected the relays which send quantum signals between cities.
Well, my understanding is they're currently using it.
Yes, and so how did they get this information?
Oh, I think that came out of a bathroom server someplace.
There you go. This folks ties it all together. These folks were in the business of selling out America's cryptography, and all the corporations were involved because they were involved in setting up the tech through the cell phones and making them ready for this technology. Now, this technology also gets into a completely different segment, which is not my specialty, which is the mind control issues.
The mind hacking.
Yes.
Yeah.
which I believe is also part of another SAP program which they've released, because we were the specialists in that area. We're the only, not the only country working on it, but we're the country that has perfected it to a certain level.
No, thank you to the paperclip Nazis that were brought over from Germany. We got a huge lead in that realm.
You're brilliant, man. Look at Thumper. Look at Thumper go, man. He tied this right back to Germany. Tied it right back to Merkel, which was the gap. See, look, he always minds the gap. I love Thumper because he tied it right back to Germany. Because guess what's going to happen here in Germany very shortly? Guess who? What did Q say the other day? It's sad that Germany is controlling the UK.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting way of saying that they're rolling out the 5G mind control program through quantum key distribution with China, with Huawei.
It's scary that China has such a lead in this as well, because their advancements and ability to produce electronics, thanks to the outsourcing of all of our electronics production to China, has given them an opportunity to really have a fantastic manufacturing base there as well. And the fact that the Chinese, just the natural resources that they have there, China's a monster that we are going to have to learn to live with or deal with, whichever way you want to take it.
Okay, let's look at this article, folks. Remember, that PDF, that meeting was curtailed in September of 16. I move you forward to June of 17. Chinese satellite relays a quantum signal between cities. So within a year of that meeting, China had done the following. On a clear night at the end of the last year, a green dot appeared in the horizon near the Myanmar border. That's Burma. It was like a very bright green star, says physicist Xiaozhang Liu. Liu, a professor at the University of Science and Technology of China, saw it from an observing station on the outskirts of the Chinese city of Lijiang. He and his colleagues had to act fast. The green star was actually a laser beam from a satellite orbiting over 300 miles overhead, like a lighthouse beacon advertising the spacecraft's location. The laser dot was streaking across the sky and would disappear beyond the horizon in just 10 minutes. So the team, made up of researchers from multiple science institutions in China, locked their telescope onto the green laser in search of the real prize within, delicate single infrared photons produced by a special crystal on the satellite. Filtering out the green light, they latched on to their quarry, a quantum signal, the likes of which had never been sent. The experiment was a crucial test for budding technologies called quantum cryptography, which uses quantum particles like photons to send secure information. But fragile quantum particles are notoriously difficult to transmit. If you try to send them through optical fiber, the signal set's corrupted after just 150 miles of travel. Not super useful if you want to send information across a country or the world. So researchers have long proposed using satellites to beam quantum particles over long distances. And I'm going to assert here that that's why they use cell phones. Because a cell phone becomes a adequate and a precise placed from which to send photons over long distances. But they'd never done it till now. In this experiment, the satellite distributed single photons between two ground stations 750 miles apart, a new record for extending the distance of quantum communication networks. This is a milestone, says Eleni Diamanti, the vice director of Paris Center for Quantum Computing, who was not involved in the work. Well, excuse me, Paris knows about this? There's no question about it? The Paris Center for Quantum Computing is involved in this? Okay, so who isn't involved in this? This is a global reach, folks, to set the global deep state up with quantum cryptography and close out the rest of the world if they don't want to play on board, get on board. China launched the $100 million satellite known as Quantum Experience at space scale last August from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in Gobi Desert. Before the launch, researchers placed a complicated system of lasers, mirrors, and special crystal. A special crystal. Wow. So you could put that special crystal in the cell phone. Wow. So I would have to smash the heck out of that so that nobody would find that special crystal.
Well, that's the thing. I was going to ask you that because my understanding of quantum communications is that you can extend the range through repeaters, but each repeater has to be built specifically to receive the signal and then resend it without disrupting the cryptological aspect of it, and not destroy the message. So it's a very my understanding is that's one of the big hurdles in the technology.
I'm with you, and let's say even as we speak, we're running on a horizon of emerging technology. This is what they're working on today, and the articles that I have lined up here, they're making jumps. They've now figured out how to send it via SDN over telephone lines over glass cable, fiber optic. They've now figured that out. So they're making leaps and bounds. And folks, the next thing we need to research is, I haven't found the article. I've found some mention of names, but there are 3 scientists who've been Arkansided over this issue, and I need to find them because that's going to be a key position. Because if we see who they're killing, we'll know what information they're trying to hide. Because they never leave any open doors behind them. So do away with the evidence or the evidence chain. Okay, why is this called this satellite? An image of Misius, the 5th century Chinese scientist after whom the satellite is named, was sent from Beijing to Vienna, and a reply was an image of Erwin Schrödinger. To up the ante, the scientists then conducted a video conference call between the Chinese and Austrian academies of science. So the Austrians are involved now. So the French are involved, the Austrians are involved, the Germans are involved. About 2 gigabytes of data was transmitted during the course of the 75-minute call, including a 560K bit quantum key. The conference was also encrypted using AES 128, which refreshed the 128-bit seed keys once every second. So they are, folks, these people are involved. And now we move on to an article that what is being done, there are folks out there who are defenders of our freedom, who are defenders of our secret information, who are defenders of our systems. And they meet regularly, and folks, to be honest, they are military. So you now have the immediate and obvious conflict set up between us and them. That now you've got the military who knows about this. Who would know about it? Well, the NSA, Snowden. Okay, what is Snowden relaying out there? Well, I've just given you some hints, folks. I've just given you some hints. These people are playing with cryptography, with quantum key distribution. That's what this battle is about, and the battle is meant to allow them to exhibit their mind control globally through this 5G rollout, using our mind control technologies over this quantum key distribution system. That's what it is, folks. That's the whole story. Now, there are some gaps that need to be filled in. There are some issues that need to be filled in. Thank you, Thumper. I really appreciate that, because there's a lot of work we need to do here, folks. There's a lot of material that we don't know. Well, how do we know what we don't know? Well, we got to go out there and do research. Well, I'm going to give you another article here before I share Thumpers. Let me get this one up here. Okay, we need to prepare for quantum attacks now, top U.S. scientists warn. And this is 7 December 2018. Why are they warning? Well, they're warning because they understand that quantum key distribution is right on the horizon, if not have already touched down on the tarmac. The promise of quantum computing brings with it some mind-blowing potential, but it also carries a new set of risks. Scientists are warning, specifically the enormous power of the tech could be used to crack the best cybersecurity we currently have in place. And now, I'm a pastor. You folks know that. And I also know that the goddess of destruction is outside of CERN over there in the UK. And now I've seen the folks in the UK cooperating on quantum key distribution and photon distribution. What is CERN? What is CERN? It's a halon collider. It works with photon distribution. It works with quantum key distribution. It works with the determination to use that collider to discover out the mysteries of quantum computing.
Ripping a hole in reality, I think.
That's it. And the Bible is very clear on it that they will be given the keys to the abyss to let out those things which are trapped therein. And it's a very frightening concept, folks. But you know, if you want to escape biblical information, you can't run far enough. Because guess what? Wherever you are in the universe, you just got hit with the fact that they knew about this quantum computing and AI technologies that would produce the keys to opening up portals to other dimensions. Wow. That bends your mind. I see Thumper was about to go to sleep before when I was chatting, and now he's like, "Well, I am."
No, we have been we've been covering a lot of this, and you know, I'm just going back through a bunch of the stuff that was sent to me, and I'm going to send you these links here.
Yeah. Well, hey, feel free to share them, because I'm going to stop my share, but you've got more computing power, so I'm going to stop my share, and I will run my mouth, which is, I got more than enough power there, but you know, my computing is definitely lacking in processing.
Well, I'm scrolling back through all this stuff because there was some.
Let me make you a host here. Hang on, because remember, this is my shindig.
Yeah. Because I received a bunch of stuff on quantum theories and things like that, just so kind of let people know what is going on with you know, when you say quantum communications, quantum this, quantum that, everybody goes, "Oh, that must be really special," but they really don't have an understanding for what it really is, and neither do I.
They don't, and the reality is to put your mind around that. And, you know, when you sit here and folks, I've had a conversation with Anthony Patch in the past, and you have to sit down and wrap your mind around this. When you start thinking about the 27 different levels of string theory, that one will loop you around yourself. You'll be tied around yourself, and you'll be going, okay, I've now got to have a completely renewing of my mind to understand this stuff. So I'm with you, but let's delve into it. Because the future is here, folks. This is what we're dealing with. This is the stuff they're trying to steal, because it is the hottest stuff on the market. It is what everybody's after. And let's be honest, if China or anybody could get a leg up on us through purchasing the materials by those illegal, espionage-ridden, poisonous people at the top of our government, well, they certainly would.
I'm just trying to get this page to load in here. Must be either a large page or it's a very busy website, or my internet is getting hammered right now, which seems to happen.
Well, let's put it this way. I tried to do this show last night. Thumper, I tried for 4 hours, and my computer crashed every single time I tried to put this information out there. And I finally quit at 3 a.m. And that's why I started again today, because I wanted to call your attention to this so that somebody knows the information that I've gotten out there, so that, you know, it's not just me sitting in a bucket talking to myself, singing Pink Floyd songs.
There you go.
Funny.
Well, this page is loading really, really slow. I just shut down my Zoom, the channel Zoom meeting. Maybe that'll free up a little bandwidth on my.
Cool. I'm gonna release whatever bandwidth I can release here. I'll stop my video and I'll stop my background, and I'll just chat while you're sharing.
Well, this thing it's slowly loading, but it's taken forever. But it's a quantum. It's a couple of chapters out of a quantum lecture on quantum communication.
Cool.
And it came from one of our anons that's been sending Dead Cat and myself. Just a ton of stuff.
Yeah, and you can imagine the guy that I am, folks. That's what I sit and read. And, I don't discuss it because, it's just it really requires. It's not the kind of thing you bring up at parties. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe a Patriot soapbox party, but
maybe with three guys and the Queen, right?
All right, I'm going to put this up here.
Go ahead, brother. I made you host.
Reviewed these. So, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. And I do have transmission of what you got.
All right.
Boy, look at that Orbis. Look at that Orbis melon I've put up there. Look at that thing, man. Jeez. A 16-pound melon.
Okay, Chapter 2, quantization of the EM field photons as fundamental excitations of its modes. Isn't that fun stuff to hear?
It is. In fact, when you go to school for it, man, you better love caffeine, brother.
Oh, yeah. In this chapter, we'll develop the fundamentals of quantum electrodynamics, QET, i.e. the generalization Maxwell's equations, which naturally lead to the concept of the modes and then to the photons, which populate these individual modes. They allow us to describe many quantum optical effects. We look into multimode, entangled, and excitations later. This process of quantization is often termed the construction of the laws of QET. This term is somewhat misleading. In reality, the process is educated guesswork, which combines three trains of thought. The compatibility requirement to classical electrodynamic equations must retain their validity as an approximation of the new governing equations of QET. The ingenious idea, we follow the same approach that links classical with quantum mechanics. Namely, we start from a canonical formulation of Maxwell's equations. Okay, so it just gets into these equations, and I'm reading stuff. I have no clue what I'm reading here. Maxwell's equations being written. So I give a whole bunch of these equations, and somebody who is a math genius is going to figure this out. It won't be me.
You know what? I could swear that Google last week posted one of Maxwell's equations on their search engine.
Really?
Yeah. A week ago, I saw one of these equations, and I was like, okay. I'm not recognizing exactly what equation that is, but it blew me away. So they posted that on their search engine last week. That landing page. When they change it.
Right.
They changed it to one of these equations.
Yeah, this is a very, very. This is.
And you know what? Thumper, you're leading right into one of the next articles that I have that I'm not going to show. But, folks, why do you think they're grilling Facebook and Google about this search engine in China? Because, folks, they've come up with quantum internet.
That's what they're trying to do, yes.
They've come up with it. They've developed it, and that's the CIA program behind the scenes that has worked in cooperation with China. And that's what they don't want revealed. And that is what the Congress is picking at, but won't say it.
I'm going to pull that chair down, and I'm going to look for anything that actually might mean something of relevancy to
Well,
our audience out there. Not to take anything away from our audience.
well, you did have that one article, Thumper, about the mind control. I think that one would be really necessary at this point, at this juncture. It would be prudent at this juncture because that's where we need to go next, folks. We need to know how they've catalyzed and how they've also sold off and developed this mind control so that this 5G rollout is done in a quantum computing environment and finalizes their mind control capacity for anybody who's got some psychological problems like that.
All right, let me just clean this website up a little bit here.
Or the correct pharmacaic. You know, they may have come up with, you know, Q keeps bringing up the drug companies. What role are they playing? It's much bigger than we know. The drug companies, why are they all of a sudden? I've noticed within and I have a background in this area as well, so I've been noticing that all of a sudden everybody I talk to is being diagnosed with diabetes or pre-diabetes, and they're being put on drugs like metformin. And what if I'm just saying that these pharmacokinetics, which is pharmakeia in the Bible, in Greek, is sorcery.
Mm-hmm.
So what if these pharmacokinetics, together with this 5G, they're getting a large swath of the population, and those who are diagnosed with PTSD or with, some depression disorders, what if the drugs that they're being given opens up the blood-brain barrier to be activated by these signals?
Well, actually, what's happening is one of the things that's happening is they're using real high-tech polymers that and they're put into your bathing products. They're put into your hair shampoos, your soaps, your household cleaning products, and those are, when you use those, they're being absorbed into your skin, which is allowing your skin to be highly sensitive to radio signals, basically turning you into an antenna for these signals.
That makes a lot of sense.
They can influence you in so many different ways now, using these high frequency waves, which are in millimeters, and then placing upon those signals on basically the carrier wave, and then modulating those with all kinds of different signals that they can.
That is brilliant what you just said. It's so brilliant. I need to talk about it. When you talked about the length of those waves, if you look on your microwave, there'll be a metal sheet across the front of your microwave with holes in it. And the reason those holes are the size that they are is because microwaves cannot escape through those holes. They're too long to escape through those holes. And what happens is when you get affected by the sun, the different waves of the sun, you've heard of, alpha and beta waves. Well, there are certain rays of the sun that are so small that they can actually penetrate your cell and knock the electrons into a higher or lower orbit in your cell, thus mutating the cell and creating a cancerous cell, a mutated gene, a mutated cell. And that's why, you put on sunscreen, because the waves, there's certain light waves that are so small that they can penetrate your cell and mutate the cell into a cancerous cell.
Now that would be really good if they didn't also place into these sunscreen products the same stuff that I was just talking about.
That's it. And I think my gut says, I go by the Lord's direction in my life, and my gut says, my internal clock says that these are two different things that you're discussing. Because one of them, they're looking for candidates who have a history of depression or PTSD and a certain drug use.
Well, they're also looking for people who can be easily manipulated.
That's it.
Some people are more prone to being manipulated than others.
That's it.
And some of it is, what kind of chemicals have you come in contact? What kind of a personality you have? What is your basic body chemistry like? And now your body chemistry can change whether you're a happy person, you're a sad person. Your brain has so much in your outlook on life. Your spirituality makes a big difference in your body chemistry.
Okay, now I'm going to turn this biblical for a moment. The full armor of God. Why are you putting on the full armor of God? So that you'll be protected from this stuff, folks. That's what it's about. It's about protecting you from the onslaught that's going to come, from the fiery darts. Fiery darts. It's strange. He says fiery darts, doesn't it? Well, my gut says, Thumper, that you're on to two different concepts. I think one is those polymers. I think those are designed to set us up to make us highly cancerous, to kill us.
It could be used for that.
To cull the population.
They can also be used to use these 5G signals, these high frequency signals, and actually talk to you. They can give you. They can put a voice in your head.
I have an article here. A fellow Anon. He did a blog, and it's a wonderful blog. He goes through and he did what Q told him to do. He goes and finds those people that have shot up schools in the last 5 years, and he looks into their histories, and he found out that all of them claim to have been hearing voices and feeling emanations, waves coming through their body. So I think what we're dealing with here is there are two ideals here. One is they're creating soldiers, unwitting soldiers, based upon their pharmacokinetics and the activation keys through 5G or some other premise through quantum computing. And they're also setting us up to be culled as a population, which is their eventual desire.
That too, absolutely.
To kill off the planet.
In this article here, it says here, the U.S. military has tested multiple times a brain implant. Now, this is using an implant right into the brain, and I'm sorry, I don't volunteer. I do not give my permission for anything like that. A brain implant that allows a human operator to simultaneously control with their thoughts up to 3 flying drones. Well, in theory, the tests overseen by the Defense Advanced Research Projects, DARPA agency, were computer simulations. And while they might eventually lead to actual mind control for flying robots, the technology is still in its infancy. The mind control drone trials took place in Pittsburgh between June 2016 and 2017, according to DARPA. Using bidirectional neural interface, a volunteer named Nathan Copeland was able to simultaneously steer a simulated lead aircraft and maintain formation of 2 simulated unmanned support aircraft in a flight simulator. The test subject, Copeland, who is partially paralyzed, never actually steered a real drone using only his thoughts. Instead, he channeled his thoughts through a medical implant embedded in the skull, which used electroencephalogram or EEG, electroencephalogram, the same method doctors use to diagnose epilepsy, to interface with the computer simulation of a drone navigating an obstacle course in the company of 2 robotic wingmen. The technology is promising and one day could lead to direct interface between human operators and robots. That's right, mind control for drones. But there are limits. Vaguely controlling one drone is possible today. Directly controlling several drones with greater fidelity and full two-way communication is beyond the reach of current tech, as they say.
Or they say they're lying because they're not going to tell you the truth. This is a DARPA program and they're talking to a reporter, so they're not going to tell you what it actually does. They're going to tell you what they want you to know.
So actually, what they're saying is they're playing with this stuff, and this is what they're willing to admit to.
That's it.
And it all sounds very innocuous. Oh, no big deal.
Yeah, it's just military intentions.
This guy's just controlling machines. But reality is, if you can transmit from your brain to control something else can transmit to your brain to control you.
That's it. And let, again, brilliant. And let's be honest, folks. Do you trust these people?
No.
Do you trust these people to do the noble thing with this tech? No, they've shown that every tech that they come up with, they use it to either enslave us, to misdirect us, or to turn us into their unwitting slaves to do their bidding. That's just the way it is. And if you have put your faith and trust in man, empirically, this is why Q and I got into a little spit the other night, because he's telling us to use empiricism. Well, Thumper and I were discussing this, and the reality is whose empirical thought are we going to trust? Is there a particular man we're going to trust in? Is there somebody we found noble that we're going to believe upon? No, my full faith and trust and hope is placed in the Lord Jesus Christ, and that's just the way it is. And so I don't go by empirical thought. The Word says, trust the Lord with all your heart and depend not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. So, Q and I got in a little bit of, conundrum, so to say, because I think that we're in our current circumstances because we've determined to be empiric instead of going back to the absolute truth of the Bible. Now, that's my segue. I apologize. I do have a propensity to digress, and that digression takes me directly back to the Bible.
Well, take a look at this, what I have up on the screen right now, futurism.
I'm looking.
The evolution of brain-computer interfaces. Imagine a world where machines can be controlled by thought alone. This is the promise of brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, using computers to decode and translate human thoughts into machines' commands. Here's a look at the evolution of BCI technology, its current state, and future prospects. Okay, now I start out with invasive. Signal transmitting devices are implanted directly in the brain gray matter. This method produces the highest quality signals, but scar tissue buildup can cause signal degradation. Oh, gee, the body's scar tissue trying to get rid of this thing, okay? So they
can I bring up a collateral idea that needs to be presented?
Sure.
Folks, have you seen Captain Marvel, this new movie that's come out?
I have not.
Thumper, you need to see it because they're telling you their plan. And in this movie, they have what's called the AI deity. And
the AI deity?
The AI deity. And the AI deity
wonderful
comes into your mind through electronic means and has a conversation with you and directs your thought and controls you and determines what your service for the nation is and directs you and directs your influence and actually will war against you if you have thoughts of coming against the empire. The
wonderful
AI deity. So they're telling you their plans. Can you imagine if they come up with this AI supercomputer? And I'm sitting in on a seminar this week that my father sold defense computers for a long time and worked with the supercomputer folks throughout the history of computer evolution, and these folks have come to the level where they now have an AI supercomputer that is smarter than we are. And so we have reached this point, folks, where we can now be subjected to the controls of an AI deity.
Well, here you go.
That's what's coming, brother, and that's why we have to put on the helmet of salvation to protect our minds from this stuff, man.
Absolutely.
We're going to be subjected to this. There's going to be a major deception perpetrated upon the planet, and that's our only way to be protected from it.
So and that's the scary part about all of this, because as you see the progression as we go here, you may not even realize that this has happened to you.
No.
Yeah, eventually.
It's Matrix. It's Matrix.
So,
they plug you into the machine and put you to sleep and put you in a perpetual dream, and you think you're living your life.
So we've got, the first off is invasive. These are experiments, let's see what we can drag off the brain. And and what we can do with the signals coming out of the brain. And then you have partially invasive devices are implanted within the skull, but not within the brain tissues, produce higher quality signals than non-invasive techniques by circumventing the skull's dampening effect on transmissions and has less risk of scar tissue buildup. And then we have the complete non-invasive, involves a simple wearable that register the EM transmission of neurons with no expensive or dangerous surgery needed. This technique is certainly easier, but suffers from poor resolution caused by the skull's interference. Darn skull just gets in the way. A short history of BCI. In 1924, German neuroscientist Hans Berger discovers neuroelectrical activity using electroencephalography, EEG. In 1970, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, begins to explore the potential BCI applications of EEG technology. How much you want to bet that somewhere about 1970 as well, you think that a lot of people started coming up? How long has epilepsy been around?
I'm with you. And here's the other thing I would add. Do you think it was actually 1970 that they did this, or was it 1950? And this is when they finally had to report it because somebody found out.
My sister was all of a sudden had started having epileptic seizures.
Wow.
Okay. And that was back in about the 1970s.
Wow.
And they had to put her on medications and different stuff to control it. And she's not had any seizures for years. I think the last one she had was maybe back in college. And she's my older sister, so she's in her 60s now. So anyway, and that thought just occurred to me when I was thinking about that, when I started seeing this electroencephalography, because they had to do the brain monitoring and all that other stuff, right? And then in 1998, first brain implant produces high quality signals. In 2005, a monkey's brain is successfully used to control a robotic arm. That's not a monkey, but I don't know. In 2014, direct brain-to-brain communication achieved by transmitting EEG signals over the internet. Wasn't that sweet? Types of non-invasive BCI: eye movement and pupil eye oscillation, electroencephalography, magnetic resonance and imaging, and magnetoencephalography.
I've just had a thought, and please forgive me because this is raw thought, folks. If the idea behind quantum computing and quantum experiential photonic cryptography is based upon the fact that when you look in the box, it changes the basis of the experiment, that the cat is actually live or dead. When you look in the box, it is either live or dead at that point, and it requires you looking at it that changes this experiment. And that's the idea between quantum cryptography. If I know the basis of one photon or the charge of one photon, then it automatically changes the charge of its partner photon, even if it's across the universe.
Mm-hmm.
That's quantum cryptography. Well, what if that is the code to a person's mind? It's a quantum cryptography code, and this can break that code of the mind through the EEG, and that's what they're seeking, is to crack the code to be able to access our brains and be able to modify our thoughts and movements.
Well, I think we've seen elements of that already in these people who have, take for instance the gentleman that was outside the White House that was there to do something. He had a gun, and he ended up shooting his phone and telling and screaming that get the voices, get that, get out of my head, and shot his phone on the sidewalk in front of the White House.
So Thumper, I'm going to just say point blank that they've discovered through a matter of experiences and a matter of pharmacokinetics and an application of certain cryptologic keys and certain elements over a signal, and that signal being either a laser-induced signal or a cell phone signal through 5G, that they have cracked the code to, they've determined the perfect environment or the perfect species, the perfect personnel to turn into their witting soldiers.
Well, they've discovered those that are currently to the current their current processes, who are most susceptible and easiest,
ideal candidates.
Yeah, easiest to have as candidates for their experiments. However, part of what they're doing is to move past that, and through the processes that might seem extremely mundane. You've heard me talk about death by 1,000 frustrations.
Yes.
Well, your frustration level changes your chemical properties of the body, just like we were talking about earlier with the your spiritual level changes the armor of God. Let's just say the armor of God. If you believe in God and that chemical change, that belief, that faith, that God, knowing that you have God's protection, God's watching over you, it physically changes you.
Yes,
okay?
And the Bible says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by a renewing of your mind. And that really is a deep statement when you look into it, Thumper.
Actually, yeah, because God has placed already in us the armor of God.
His Spirit. It's when we accept His Spirit.
Yes, and it's there, and to acknowledge it and to practice it, we are girding ourselves against these kinds of things.
Amen. You well said, brother.
And so when you get down here and you start seeing all these other different ways that they're looking at it, synthetic telepathy, the establishment of a direct mental connection or communication pathway between minds. Oh, isn't that fun?
They figured it out. And remember, the Germans were the ones that did the 1924 EEG. They're the ones who've been practicing this stuff for years and years and years and years. So go figure. And Thumper, Thumperism 58, the Germans are involved with the Chinese in this mind control because they're the ones who've been doing the testing the longest.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who came up with the Illuminati. They're the ones who came up with communism. They're the ones that came up with all these ideas, folks. When are we going to realize that?
Look at this one. And the use of BCI and telerobotics will allow human operators to directly link with robotic machines, granting us a new way to explore alien worlds, handle dangerous materials, and perform remote surgery. What's one of the most popular movies that came out here in recent years? Avatar.
Yeah.
Okay. And what did they do? They climbed into a little pod. They made this mind link with, now this is they're mind linking with a genetically grown, modified version of their own genetic makeup body. It is an organic body, but now because of its closeness in genetics to the operator can, basically,
You're totally right. Do you see, folks, how Hollywood is the mechanism by which they indoctrinate us or preparatorily indoctrinate us with ideals that they are going to be rolling out as reality?
Mm-hmm.
They're setting us up. They're feeding us full of these ideas so that when they become real, we're already mentally prepared for them, and we look at them under the auspices of this is favorable to society, or we align with these avatars, and saying that they're noble and we're not. or we learn to love dragons, which are horrible fire breathing, man eating things. We learn to love them and see them in Jurassic Park as potentially, guarders of our back instead of eating our heart, which is what they would do.
Well, if you look at just the movie Avatar, look at the spiritualism that they, of the people on the planet, and how the planet and the people were connected, and
collective, yeah.
And all of this stuff, and and then in the end, what did it show? It showed the hero of the movie basically casting off his human body and going full time in his avatar body without the use of the machine to place his consciousness there.
Give into the Matrix. Give into the Matrix. Become the Matrix, because the Matrix is the real reality.
Yeah. And they do it through the romanticism. Oh, gee, wouldn't it be cool to have a body like that? And you could do this, and you're blue, and you look like a cat.
You can fly. You can fly on a dragon.
Yeah, you can fly on a dragon. All of this stuff. It's very romantically displayed for you there.
Look at our kids indoctrinated in communism. Communism is a horrible, horrible disease, and they've killed hundreds of millions of people every time communism enters a country or socialism enters a country. The people lose their rights. Christianity gets destroyed, and you can just look throughout history and see it over and over again. Why do 50% of our youth want socialism? Mind control. It's mind control. They've mind controlled our children. They've indoctrinated them through the big lie, and over again, showing them symbolism and indoctrinating them to a lie. And you're showing it right here. That's their process. They've put the best mind controllers are professors.
And you look at this next one here. This one's really interesting. Look at this. A wealth of new possibilities for interfacing with computers opens up, including linking to the internet, uploading memories to the cloud, etc. Okay, so here we have the internet. We have the World Wide Web. And what's this? Signals back down to you.
The AI deity. I'm going to be in touch with the AI deity, and the AI deity is going to tell me what to do, and I'm going to be able to have a conversation with the AI deity. And I'm going to, you need an upgrade? Okay, we'll give you a new arm. Look at that new movie, the Alita, the Battle Angel. What is Alita, the Battle Angel? Brother, watch that movie. You're going to be disgusted. What they teach us, what they're teaching our kids, is that as long as you have a human head, you can make the rest of that body so attractive, so feminine, so powerful, so capable that we are going to love clones. We're going to love cyborgs. That's the future. That if your arm goes bad, you replace it. If your kidney goes bad, you replace it. If the optimal situation is to get your entire body replaced, keep your mind and your humanity through keeping your head.
Well, look at the last thing on the list here. What they show this guy, the disabled symbol here, somebody in a wheelchair, and then look what they say. It will effectively erase the divide between the disabled and the able-bodied.
Wow. You see it. Folks, this is what they're rolling out. This is the story that we've been telling today, that the information that was most likely on Hillary Clinton's server was SAP information involving quantum key distribution, and the Chinese have taken it and run with it, and there are many other countries involved, and it also involves this rollout with 5G, utilizing that quantum key distribution, and cell phones, utilizing certain tech, of which Thumper has done a wonderful job at laying out there, and they're going to use that tech for mind control purposes, or perhaps to cull the population. Now, did I put it succinctly there, Thumper?
Oh, yeah. Let me share one more thing here with you here. This document here is kind of interesting because it's basically a patent. Okay, and the patent, you can see the patent application number here. Q wants to play on the computer here. He's been playing hide and seek behind the computer screen. He thinks we're playing here.
It's collusion. Russia.
Yeah. Oh, stop biting me. Okay. Because I'm talking with my hands. He's slapping at my. Okay, I won't talk with my hands. The present invention relates to a sensing device of an emotion signal and a method thereof capable of recognizing and analyzing the change in emotion by collecting at least one of the biosignals and peripheral environmental signals guiding the state of emotion to a user. And sharing emotion information with authorized persons and communicating it between them. The sensing device of the emotion signal, according to the embodiment of the present invention, includes a sensing signal processor that senses a plurality of biosignals and peripheral environment signals of a user. An emotion signal processor that generates emotion signals representing the emotional state of the user for each of the sensed biosignals, and collects emotion signals to generate an emotion index and an emotion signal communication unit that optionally transmits the emotion signals and the emotion index to external authorized devices. What does that sound like? I mean, for crying out loud.
We can read your mind. There you go.
Reading your mind, sensing your emotions. So if they send a little signal to you and they go, oh, no, wait a minute. We have to adjust that signal because that's not the emotion we want. We want this emotion.
Or hey, this guy is really, he looks like a fine, upstanding individual, but he constantly contemplates killing people. Mm-hmm. We sense that emotion, and therefore let's drug him a little bit. Let's hit him with a dose of whatever we need in order to heighten the signal, and let's set him loose and give him.
Let's turn him loose in a school with a gun.
That's it. Yeah. We're going to program him with the thought that these children are evil and they need to be eradicated.
So when you start looking at all of this, and these are patents, and they have demonstrated enough of a theory and or actual information here that these are patents, and so you have to ask yourself, okay, why?
Oh, you know why
was Hillary so interested in having control of all the patents?
Yep, and let's be honest, folks. Do you give everybody keys to your house? I mean, do you just go out and make keys to your car and hand them out downtown? Well, these folks have keys to your brain.
Your brain,
they
yes.
Have keys to all that you are. They have keys to your cell phone. They have keys to that. That's it. If you have the key, you can operate the mechanism. So, folks, look, none of these folks are noble. You want transparency? I'm hearing transparency is to put another OIG in charge and give them more authority. Poppycock. None of these people are noble, and you give them more power and they become more powerful, and it corrupts them. And so, look, we need volunteers. We need people, real people, going in and serving in this government. And we don't need a king. We don't need a king. We don't need dukes. We don't need earls. We don't need princesses. We don't need any of that. You want to be a princess? Guess what? We'll call you a princess, and we'll call you a cab at the same time. Because, the reality is this country was formed on the ideal that we don't need a king. We don't want a king. We want to be self-ruled and self-governed. And here, what we're seeing here, folks, is the exact reason why we came up with that idea for this free nation. Because when you put these people in power, it corrupts them, and then they become corrupt, and then they make you their subjects. Every time you get a king in a position, the king determines that you work for him.
This little article here, below are technologies related to neurocognitive under 3 key areas of accelerating change: neural network computing, extended cognition, and neural interfaces. Neural network computing will lead to improvements in computer vision and analysis, such as detecting emotions and moods, which may have safety and security applications. Extended cognition involves more direct connection to people's brains, allowing mood, thought, patterns, and information to be altered in the brain. Neural interfaces get information out of people's brains more efficiently, ultimately allowing a machine-enabled form of telepathy.
Boy, I would love to speak with Gary Wayne about this. You know, the seven sacred scientists, the Atlantean scientists,
Mm-hmm.
and the Tower of Babel, and the Lord confusing their language. I think they may have discovered some of this same technology through medical means, and they may have had the same capacities, and that's why the Lord made them speak all different languages, so that because the Lord said, if they master this, there's nothing they can't master.
Here's a couple of things. Neural network computing, proactive software agents, software applications with the capacity of discerning and predicting likely future needs for whomever is being served.
What's neural network? What's neural network?
That's
AI. That's AI. They're using neural network. AI is neural network. It's simulating human thought. It's going beyond our thought, using means more power and processing than we have.
Right.
It's AI, they are perfecting an AI deity, someone who is so far advanced from us that they would look at us like we're ants.
Intelligently scheduling meetings for you, sorting email, and selectively notifying the user or potential users. Scientifically viable today, mainstream in 2016, financially viable in 2017. Oh, this was written a while ago.
Thumper, it's on our phones. Have you had your phone? Have you got a new phone recently? It wants you to.
Mine's not broke. I ain't gonna fix it.
I'm with you. It wants you to talk to it. It wants to recognize your voice patterns. It wants to make appointments for you. It wants to tell you which way to drive. It wants to tell you what food to eat. Your cell phone. And look at our kids. What are they carrying? All of them have in their hands.
No, it's a scary part of life, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you see what's happening. This is what's happening. What Thumper is portraying to you is happening. And this is not only a consequence of technology, this is a premeditated effort to control the world's population.
Neural network image recognition. This is interesting. Using hundreds of thousands of processor cores programmed to algorithmically determine the content of a given image. Different from reverse image search, neural network image recognition has the capacity to successfully understand the photo of, for example, a cat, based on thousands of cat pictures. Scientifically viable today, mainstream in 2021, financially viable in 2022.
You're brilliant. And here's the thing. Why do memes?
Exactly.
You want us to use memes? Because AI has not yet gotten to the point where it can handle images like a human. But when it does, we're in trouble.
Because that's exactly why we're using memes. They algorithmically screw with them.
Yep. And they can't use the capacity of a human being to if you put 1,000 cats in front of us, we can distinguish between every single cat. To the computer, it's just a cat. It doesn't have that distinguishing capacity, that discernment that human beings have.
You think maybe God had a reason for giving us discernment?
I think,
and that ability to compute that discernment? Do you think he gets a little bit frustrated with us when we don't?
And here's the other thing. What does the enemy always do? The enemy can't create, so the enemy mimics. The enemy is creating, is using duplication of a human through scientific means to mimic what God has created, to mimic a AI cyborg avatar being, to stick his finger in the eye of God and saying, look, I created something better than you made.
Well, tell me something. Have you found any new technology that isn't more confusing than what it was actually replacing? In other words, they tell us it's supposed to improve our lives, but the learning curve, the confusion factor, the idea that when we get a new piece of software, a new updated piece of software, they move one aspect of it over here. They change the name of a category or something like that. Why do they do that? Is it because they're making it better, or are they just frustrating you and using confusion to make you feel inferior?
I think you're right, and let's be honest, man. This is a premeditated, PhD certified, determined plan to do what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
That is to bring us into subjection.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only end result, is to bring us somehow into subjection, either economically, psychologically, spiritually, or physically under their thumb. That's what it's about. And so,
well, check out this next one here: emotion tracking, using sensors, computer vision, and algorithms to correctly identify the likely emotions displayed by individuals in a crowd. Useful in airports and other high-risk facilities. Scientifically viable today, mainstream in 2018, financially viable 2019. Predictive groups.
We're here, folks. You wonder why they pictured 2020 as the end of their plan, the end all and be all, because that's what they were going to do. The launch date was 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Launch date was next year. Launch date. I don't know if they were going to plan World War III to break out in 2020, because that's probably the catalyst that they need to really take over the world.
Well, if they had all of this stuff available and they could collect all that information, when they finally pushed everybody to their absolute limit, and they were using this kind of technology to gather the information, all right, do you think they would have a really good idea on who they were going to round up and who they were going to leave alone?
There you go. Round up the ones you cannot be controlled. And here, I'm going to say something that's really going to strike you. The Lord says that the Antichrist will kill all the Christians he can find.
Mm-hmm.
Are they the ones that are protected from this? They're the ones that are protected from this.
I'm praying that's the case.
They're not susceptible. They're not susceptible to the wiles that they're producing, because they're protected by the Spirit of the Lord, and so therefore they must be destroyed, because everybody else is cattle
mm-hmm.
that you can control. Everybody else is herdable, and
the sheep.
Yeah, and the Christian's going to stand up and look at you and go, "Nope, I'm sorry, nope, I ain't doing it," because that's Antichrist. That's non-biblical, and that's what I'm doing. I'm standing up and I'm saying that, and boy, people are not happy when I say that. They want me to fall in a line. They want me to wear the red shirt. They want me to do whatever they want me to do. And the reality is, look, I don't even depend on my own thinking, because I've seen how corrupt and what a big yo-yo I am. I don't want to drive the bus into a tree. I want the Lord to drive the bus, because I know He knows where we're going.
Well, look at this next one here, Caleb. Predictive group sentiment analysis, predicting the likely behavior of large groups of people based on sociometric input variables like social tension,
they're promoting
weather variation, pedestrian flows, and a degree of agitation is becoming increasingly possible. Scientifically viable in 2022, mainstream in 2023, financially viable in 2027.
They've already launched it.
I'm pretty sure they have.
No, they have. I have proof of it. Go look up. The Q pointed us to Chongqing, China.
Oh yeah, China.
They've already
social scoring,
and they have 3 cities that are completely wired, that sense your emotions, that track you even in your own home, that track you everywhere, every thought, everything you do every day. They know where you are. And they orchestrate the entire map under their own choreography.
And you get privileges and things like that. If you want to have a car,
that's it.
Your social score needs to be a certain level, or else you're not thinking correctly. We don't want you to have a car.
That's it, Gattaca. We've tested your genes. We've done the EEG. We've done the gene testing. We've done we've determined that you're an inadequate host, and so you can't become an astronaut.
Mm-hmm.
because you've got a heart ailment, and so therefore you can't overcome that. You're the system of bad genes, and so that's what's happening, brother. That's what's going on, and
So
so
now, look at this other one. Predictive crime prevention. The use of sociometric sensors coupled with neural networked computers to statistically determine the probability of crime or other antisocial behaviors taking place before it happens.
cool.
Minority Report.
That's it.
Wasn't that a fun movie? Wouldn't you love to live in that world? No.
I think it's coming, brother, and I think today we have clearly demonstrated that it's reliable to believe that the information that was on Hillary's server at her home, her and Bill's home, was SAP information to dealing with quantum key distribution and quantum cryptography, and that it additionally included information on mind control and those patents necessary to rolling out this global control through cell phones. And the reason why they smashed their Blackberries is because the Blackberries had in them the crystals necessary to receive the laser signals over the photons of quantum cryptography, and it also allows them to, in line of sight, transmit the information to a satellite and then bounce it back to their servers. So therefore, they never really physically carried it.
Mm-hmm.
That it could be projected to another cell phone at their home and be downloaded onto the computer, and that's how they got it out of there. And,
Mm-hmm.
and it was done at such a high level that they weren't questioned, which leads me to immediately believe, and based upon Q's drops in the last week, where he has firmly, for the first time ever, said that that Obama ordered the surveillance, and that there's another. Thumper and I were looking at another Q drop which says that change you can believe in. So Obama is going to be brought up, is going to be one of those first unsealed indictments, folks, and that's going to bring hope and change that we can believe in. So that's what we're looking forward to. I've got to sign off. If you want to continue, please feel free to. I've got to run, but. What a show, folks, and I really appreciate you showing up, Thumper. You know, you really brought the mustard for the potato salad. You know.
Well, let's just look at this last one here before we sign off here. Biofeedback using real-time EEG or fMRI to illustrate brain activity, often with the goal of controlling the central nervous actions. Viable today, mainstream in 2015, financially viable in 2017. It's here.
It is here. And we need to be aware of this, folks. And I would like to, with your blessing, end in prayer. Because, folks, the only protection against this stuff is to be armored up and to be indwelt by the Holy Spirit of God. And so, you know, he's calling to us. He's prepared for this moment. He has given us the internal componentry to be protected from the wiles of this enemy, the fiery darts, the intrusions of signals, the fiery darts into our body. We've been given armor to protect us from that, and I would like to pray over everyone who's listening to this, and first thank the Lord for the opportunity to do so. Precious Heavenly Father, I appreciate the opportunity to come before your throne, Lord, and be called one of your own, and realize the power and the potency and the capacity that your indwelling of your Holy Spirit has given me, sealed me for eternity, Lord. And I ask you, Father, anybody within hearing of these words, Lord, that they be responsive to the call of your Holy Spirit upon them, and that even at this very moment, Lord, that they turn towards you and surrender to your will for their lives, and accept your offer of grace, and accept your offer of indwelling of your Holy Spirit, protecting them from these fiery darts that are being emitted by an enemy that is so devious that this enemy seeks to control the world through nefarious means that we don't even know about. And thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to join with my brother today in declaring these things and making people aware of what's going on behind the scenes, Lord. And we know that you are the King of righteous judgment, and that you're going to hold these folks accountable. But Lord, in the interim, send your warring angels to stop them, prohibit them, and set people free, and let them be armored up in your full characteristics, Lord, that they might be safe and kept safe from all these wiles that are being perpetrated upon humanity. We love you, we praise you, and we thank you for all these things that you've done for us and just being who you are. We look forward to your return, and we praise your name. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Well, thank you, brother. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording. I know that you've got a wealth, a virtual plethora of more documents.
I've got a lot of it. The guy that's been sending it to us has just downloaded a bunch of stuff, and when you start tying it all together, it's really nefarious.
And this is the time. We were given the opportunity, we were given the platform, we were given the responsibility for telling this truth. And so I'm very thankful that you've come forward today with the information that you've had, because it's entirely pertinent to the 10,000-foot picture that we need to have in order to understand what to do going forward.
You're low flying. I usually fly at about 40 grand.
Yeah, but the Marines, we got to drop to the ground from a helicopter.
There's that.
We do get up there and have to jump out by a parachute when we're going to stay for a while. But most of us are just coming in to wake them up and send them to their maker and return back to the helo. So that's where we fly.
What do they call it when they come in really, really high and they do the really long? Oh, there's a
high altitude.
Yeah, halo. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we look at the Air Force guys, man. Those dudes jump at super high heights, man, to go rescue people. They have a team that's just crazy rescue. They'll just jump out of anything. They'd jump out of a space station if they could. Crazy monsters. Well, we love you and we thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording. And you have yourself a wonderful day. I'm going to send this information to you so that you have it at the ready to play if you so desire. And thank you so much. And I'm sorry, Dead Cat wasn't available. We would have loved his input. Have yourself a wonderful day, my friend.
All right. Thank you, Caleb.